Hello and welcome to Sea Hope Podcast. We are here tonight. We're going to be talking bit differently. We've got an awesome guest, and you got myself, we got John, and we've got Martin Stevenson with us, and we're going to be talking to him in just a moment. But before we get started, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share the show with your friends. Send through some comments about the night, and about halfway through the night, once we start wrapping up, we'll let some of those cool questions come through, and we'll let you have the floor there, chat, and so we'll see how we go. And so meet our guest, Martin. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, mate. Thank you for having me.
So you're welcome. We're happy to have you on. And so, can you tell us who you are and what you do?
Yeah, well, I live at Warrnambool. I've sort of moved up here once we got married in '88, actually, and I've pretty much been in the same street ever since. I've moved across the road.
Yeah. Where'd you move from?
Granville, down Parramatta.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I got out of there.
It's a very different place to what it used to be.
Different place now to what it used to be. So the school I went to was in the headlines the other week.
That's right, it was.
Yeah, so
very. It wasn't a good headline, was it?
No. So yeah, good place not to be.
That's right. So yeah, give us a quick snapshot of your life as you were just about to do.
Yeah, well, like I said, I grew up in Granville, and then we got married and moved up to the coast because I think I paid 10 grand for a block of land.
That was a lot cheaper back then.
Yeah, I won. Me and my wife's dad used to buy a lottery ticket every week when we had a beer, and we won $1,000 between us, like one-off first prize.
Yeah.
Back then, I thought, I'm going to go and buy a block of land with that. Now you would think you couldn't even go and have a night out, but back then we come up, bought the land, and then after we got married a few years later, decided, no, we'll go and actually, we sold that because it was in Wyong and I wanted to buy bigger property, bigger land.
Yeah.
But couldn't afford it then. So we ended up on a third of an acre at Warrnambool. And pretty much we've been there ever since.
There you go.
Got a couple of kids. Played footy at Wyong for Saturday, the second division down at Wyong Leagues.
What was your position?
I was a front rower.
Is that good?
No.
Bigger fellas.
Well, he's.
I was slow.
I know it's really hard to see on the podcast, and for those who are on Spotify, he's quite a sizable man. He dwarfs me quite a bit, but it's not hard to dwarf me.
Really, only a second row, but in size, a second row, really, I suppose. But back then there was shortage of players, so you just had to play where there was a shortage.
Yeah. And what do you do with your life right now?
I got a small electrical business. I run out at Wyong.
Yeah.
I got half a dozen guys work for me. My son.
Just domestic kind of work?
No, we do work for Telstra, like batteries, DC work. We'll go all over the state. Plus we do local domestic work. So it's sort of a bit of everything. And luckily I've got some good young blokes for me. They're all local kids.
Yeah.
Apprentices. So I've had, pretty much I've had 1, 2, 4 or 5 apprentices that still all work for me.
Yeah, right.
So as they come out, I've managed to have enough work to keep them on, and I'm lucky they're good guys, and it sort of worked out good for all of us that they can work local, and it's hard to get good people now. So
yeah. All right. So why we have you here tonight? So you are a candidate for One Nation. And I really want to know, how did you end up running for One Nation in this upcoming election? How did you end up in the politics yourself, other than being like a tradie?
Yeah, well, just like probably more people now, but a few years ago I started thinking something's not right. I was going to work thinking I was doing my job and the politicians were doing their job. And then you start looking at the news and things that are going on. You think, well, hang on, they're not doing their job. They're not working for me. And I started going to a few different political. I joined Australian Conservatives originally when Corey Benani broke away from the Liberals. That was around the time I started really thinking something's not right with Labor and Liberal. And when he jumped away, I thought, okay, maybe he's got something to add. So I just went to meetings and you end up going to the meetings and there's people there, but no one wants to be a candidate. Everyone's saying, no, I can't do that. So just my dad's old saying, don't whinge about it, do something.
Mm.
And I thought, well, I got to, if no one else is going to do it, I'll do it. Not because I want to, but because someone has to, or nothing will ever change. And that's sort of how I got into it to start with. And then he folded up overnight just about when he never got the result he expected. He just sort of packed up his bag and went home.
Yeah.
And for a little while there, I was unsure where to go, thinking really the only choice is One Nation because they've been around for a period of time. They've got the values that I believe in, and they're the only ones that at that time, and I think even now, have I suppose, the ability to make a difference.
Mm.
While Labor and Liberal, seem to work together against us, we need someone else that's going to work for the people, and that's how I look at One Nation. And I thought, well, I'll join them, and pretty much the same deal. You got people in a room, and there's no one wanting to be a candidate. So once again, I stuck my hand up and said, well, I'll run.
Yeah.
And realistically, it's easy to do that in a way because, especially in Wong, you don't really expect to get elected as the local representative, but you're doing your job to help the senator get in, is what I'm thinking. Never know, one day, if I live long enough and keep going long enough, I might actually get elected, but because people are waking up fast. And all of a sudden, I think, like Labor and Liberal are winning on 30% now. That's not going to take much for them to get the punt, because once everyone works out how to vote properly and we can vote together with the minor parties and use our preferences properly, all of a sudden we can make a difference and remove Labor and Liberal. But that's the critical thing. Everyone has to learn how to vote properly.
When did you notice the shift in people going away from the big two to?
Just in the last few years, because since you start doing this, obviously you just start talking to people about things, and you talk to people. Everyone's got the shits, Labor people they're not happy with what Labor's doing. Liberal people aren't happy because it doesn't matter which way you go. You seem to look at it, and they vote together on things that the average Australian thinks, I'm not happy with that.
Mm.
Yet the Labor and Liberal Party will just guillotine something and push it through, like the digital ID.
Yeah.
Like they've done a deal before they even go in there. They've got the local representatives that have been elected by you and me don't even stand up for what they believe in. They just go and do what they're told and vote how they're told to vote.
Yeah.
And the whole concept of being a local representative is to represent the local people, not turn around and just do what you're told.
Yeah.
Especially when you have been trained in a field where you should have values that people would expect you to have. Like if you're in the medical world, people would expect you to have certain values. And then, as we saw in COVID, most of those tossed them away and once again did what they were told.
Mm.
So most of the representatives we have now have got not much going for them as far as a spine. They just do what they're told to keep the hand out and get the gravy train. So we just need regular Australians in government that will do the right thing by everyday Australians. And that's what we need.
I think there's something really powerful in that. You look at the politicians we've got today, the caliber of politician that they've been a career politician. They haven't been someone who's from the ground up in a regular Australian working a regular job. They wouldn't know how to look after the people, to manage a budget properly.
They don't know the pain the average person goes through.
That's it. And I think there's a lot of value in someone who's had a bit more of life instead of just coming through university straight into politics. I think having the people who are actually have been on the ground, who feel a calling, I think are very valuable in our system today. So I admire you for doing that. So good on you. John, did you have any questions there you had?
Yeah, so I got a question with the way you're talking about how politicians run at the moment. Do you think that to hold a portfolio, you should have some sort of work in that portfolio? So, like,
100%, you
yeah.
should have. There's no. I don't know, they put a pastry cook in charge of electricians. What's the point of that?
Yeah.
Or someone, the Minister of Education who has never worked in education.
Yeah.
That's right. That would have been, I imagine, before our time. That's how the portfolios got handed out. They got handed out on your knowledge and skills you had before you're a politician.
Means tested.
But now the problem is they've got people in there that have got no skills. So it doesn't matter where you put them. They've got nothing going for them.
The way I've seen it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is to overthrow the leader. They need to get people on their side to vote them in, and they go, "I'm going to give you a good position."
That seems you're pretty much
my
on
buddy,
the money.
I'm going to look after you.
I never looked at it like that, but I think that's all it is. They got the factions, as they call it. Instead of having a faction that's for the Australian people, they just got little factions that left or right or this or that just want power at the expense of the others in there. Whereas when government was formed, there was 100, whatever it is, representatives back then. Everyone was individual representing their people. And it's only in the recent times they've all merged into parties, I think. So early on, it would have been chaos because everyone would have had a different opinion, but at least the Australian people would have got a say in what happened. Whereas now we get no say because whatever the UN or WEF or whatever tell the Muppets to do, they do. And that's where we're at. We need to stop all that. And that's one of One Nation's key things is to stop the globalist takeover of the country. Get out of the Paris Agreement, get out of all of these UN, WEF things and take control of the country back for the people. And that's what the average person wants.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really powerful. You mentioned before how you felt you mentioned before COVID, and I wanted to get your kind of feel of where you were at during COVID and kind of what was your feel about it. I think something that got John really interested in Pauline Hanson was the fact that she was calling out that politicians were allowed to do things that us regular Australians weren't allowed to do
because they're special people.
They're essential.
Right. And the first and most basic thing was they were allowed to be exempt from the jab.
Yeah, right.
I didn't know that.
Federal government politicians and all federal employees were exempt from the jab, but anyone else wasn't exempt. So, I mean, that tells you straight away how good they are. They're not prepared to mandate themselves, but they mandate everyone else. And that, among other things, with all the hysteria they created with the everyday news broadcasts, and you look around and you think, I can't see people dropping in the streets. Yep. I can't see people dying. I can't see people sick like they're talking about, the numbers they're talking. And the reality you saw out in the street, you think, hang on, this is not adding up. And the more they pushed it, I realised this isn't for me because there's something going on here that's not above board, in my opinion. And I just sort of stuck to that. And the longer you stuck to it, the more you realise you were right.
Yeah.
And now you see more people now, unfortunately, sick, dying from the vaccine than you ever would have seen from the flu that they renamed COVID. So, because even you look at statistics, the flu had seasonal figures. And then the year COVID was on, there was no flu. It was COVID. They just renamed it. So, yeah, everything they've done has been deceitful and wrong. And, just like I said, the fact they exempted themselves from the jab, some of them still took it because they believed the lies or whatever, for whatever reason they took it, but they were exempt. So
there's a lot. I think a lot of them did it as well as a PR thing as well. They all wanted to get themselves on the camera doing it. I guess monkey see, monkey do, and
the lower level ones would have got the real one, but the high level ones would have got something else.
Saline.
That's right. They wouldn't have got the real shot. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been sitting there. Because they knew what was coming.
Do you think that's been a big shift for voters? Is through COVID seeing that the deception and that the government wasn't really there to protect us? It was trying to control.
Yeah, 100%. I think people realised all of a sudden, hang on, even like the unions. I remember seeing down in Melbourne, the union members busting the door down or throwing shit at the door of the union office because they didn't want to get the jab, but the union was saying you have to.
Yeah, they had signed.
They'd signed agreements, so obviously they're involved in it too somehow. So I mean, all these globalist organisations, whether it's a government, a union, or whatever, they've all got something that's forcing them to get people to do things that aren't the right thing for the average Australian.
Well, they blame that on Nazis. The news did so.
Oh, of course, yeah. People just want to be left alone and live their own life and make their own decisions. So to be forced to do something you don't want to do or don't believe is of any benefit. And once again, if you look at any of these medical things, you should be given informed consent. I don't think one person would have been given any information about what was in it. So, the whole thing was poorly managed, poorly done, and forced on us. And they say they didn't force it.
Rushed as well.
Yeah, they forced it on us, and they say it wasn't mandatory. But you talk to anyone that had a mortgage or had young kids, had to get money. If they didn't get it and they couldn't go to work, I don't know how that's not mandatory. So
I agree.
The government just sort of shifted the responsibility to their corporate friends who just towed the line, made it mandatory to come to work. And then all of a sudden, it wasn't the government that did it, it was the businesses. But at the end of the day, it started from the top down.
But as far as the state's concerned, that New South Wales, they legislated that you wouldn't be able to sue your employer if they required you to get the vaccine.
You wouldn't.
Yeah, you weren't allowed to do it through new legislation that they passed through with the Emergency Act.
Yeah, so and every corner you turn, all they've done is protect themselves or the vaccine manufacturers or whatever. And then the only people that are going to be left exposed will be the people that took it by force. They're the ones that suffer, or other small businesses that mightn't have the protection. But I told my guys that work for me, I said, well, I'm not getting it. I don't expect you to. And we'll survive somehow or whatever. But I said I wouldn't be doing it. I'm not asking you to do it. I'll close the business. And we're still here. We've survived.
Yeah, I was going to say, you must have survived. You're still going.
Yeah.
You got through it.
And I've found now a lot more people. I get work from people because of what we did.
Yeah.
So people now start to respect people that actually stood for something.
A lot of integrity.
Yeah, so many people now stand for nothing. You've got to stand for something, or you stand for nothing, I suppose. And people maybe start to realise that.
I think a lot of people stand for big money behind them.
Yeah. Well,
I think that's.
But they're only standing for the other people, and they're not standing for themselves.
Yeah, I think we need to stand for the voter. Gets standing for the people who actually get us into power, and I think that our kind of voices are being kind of shoved to the side, and that's really unfortunate. We're supposed to be a true democracy where the people are the
we make the rules.
Are the bosses, and I feel like we don't actually get a chance to get our voices heard these days. And if you do, even if you put your opinion up on, like, let's say X or something, the e-safety commissioner coming after you.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, how far can that go? We don't know yet, do you?
That's right.
Well, we've seen in other countries that England's pretty bad for it. They put people in prison for.
Yeah, I have seen that. Yeah, so it's coming here. Yeah,
I mean, and they did that through COVID.
Yeah,
we
saw it through COVID. We saw that mother who was pregnant get arrested.
Yeah, and taken to jail.
I would love to get her on the podcast. If you're out there, you're watching the show, jump on our website.
But that's really where we're at, and I think people have now got to a point. Some of the stuff you're into, that there's a precipice, a point you can take no more, and I think we're nearly there.
Yeah.
People have got to the point they can take no more, because up until now, most things, the average Australian has been unaffected. They can sort of stumble through life and not be affected. But now, with everything that's going on, there's not many people that aren't affected by the poor government we've got.
Yeah.
So everyone's now getting to the point where they've had enough.
Yeah, I mean, even just in my circles, we never really talked about politics until after COVID, and now I mean, even with Trump coming in and him kind of shaking up the tree, it kind of made politics very interesting. Everyone's now talking about it. Everyone has an opinion on it, and it just wasn't something people used to talk about. But if they did, they would actually still get along. But now it's if you're
It's
not in
divisive.
if you're not in my camp, I can't talk to you at all.
Mm.
I think that's divisive, as you said, and it's dangerous because then we can't move forward. And
No. Well, that's once again that's the media, because they've been owned for so long and control what's put out there.
the arbiters of truth.
Yeah, and they hate Trump for whatever reason, and we know why, because he's not one of them. He's just doing things different, so they hate him. And people will tell you they hate Trump, but if you ask them why, they can't give you a reason. I hate him. Why? I just hate him. And that's all you can get out of him, instead of saying, well, he's done this or he's done that or he's a womanizer, and that's about all they can go with.
But
They'll
if they
criticize
say
the
that,
way he
though,
talks.
then you got to say Clinton was far worse, right?
Oh, yeah, but yeah,
and like the American voters back in the late 90s were saying they're happy with how the economy is going, so it's fine with what he does in his personal life.
yeah, that's right. Whereas now the media has taken it to the next level in their attack on him. But the reality is, America seems to be improving almost weekly or daily.
Yeah, I think people feel a little bit of growing pains there as they cut so much, but I think in the end it'll end up balancing itself out and coming good.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same for, I guess, our situation. A lot of people, because if I was over there, I probably would have voted for him. And a lot of people have asked me like, "Oh, look what he's doing to Australia now." And I'm like, "Well, look, there's currently like a tariff trade battle going on right now, and I think he's trying to get the best for his country. We're trying to do the best for our country, and I think we'll find some middle ground. But we have taken advantage of America's generosity in the past, and maybe we do need to start thinking in our own backyard and how we can actually pull our own weight in the world.
Yeah.
Especially because everything's starting to get a lot more tension kind of happening right now, and we could very well end up in a hot situation very close into the future. I think we're 100% in a kind of Cold War period.
Yeah.
And
that's why you need to be a bit more self-sufficient than we are now.
Yeah, definitely.
And Trump's only doing that for America. Like, you look at every day, another company, Audi's building so many $billion plant. They're going to start manufacturing again. Then the next day it's someone else. So
and Australia threw away all their manufacturing.
Yeah, so we've given it all away with the Lima Agreement, as I sort of have mentioned before. Back in the 70s, Gough Whitlam signed the Lima Agreement, and then Malcolm Fraser ratified it. So both of them signed away Australia's manufacturing, and just over time it's been a reduction of tariffs and a reduction of this, and then all of a sudden we're not competitive. We can't build anything.
Yeah.
And compete with Chinese,
slave labor.
So, it's the situation we're in is being brought about by decades of poor government as far as Australia goes. It might be good government if you're a puppet of somewhere else that is trying to destroy the joint. They've done a good job. But if you actually wanted Australia to be a thriving economy, like we've got everything we need to be a thriving country.
Yeah. I think it was Tucker Carlson when he came here, he mentioned that Australia could be the economic superpower of the world, but we just seem to give everything away.
Yeah, I know. So,
and I interviewed a 101-year-old Jack, and if you want to go see that video, jump through the recordings on YouTube, and you'll find it. But he talked about that when the war started, they legislated that we had to have manufacturing, and we were never going to get rid of it, and we were going to be in a very bad place if we ever did.
Well, a bloke I know was a tool maker, and he couldn't go when I think the conscription, I think it was for Vietnam, and they said, "Oh no, you can't go because you're a tool maker. We need skilled labour here." And I mean, now we probably don't have hardly any tool makers left, let alone want to keep them here. So we've de-skilled everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's just and even so many things are no longer skills. They're just replace this, pull that out, swap this instead of fixing it. They
Yeah.
just pull that out and replace it. Instead of saying, "Oh, why did that break? Oh, let's have a look. Oh, it broke because of this. All right, we can fix it or we'll replace it, but we'll do this so it won't happen again."
That's right.
Now they'll just replace it and it breaks again. Oh,
Because a lot of the time it's
we'll
cheaper
have to
to
replace
just
it again.
it's cheaper to just replace things than it is to actually fix them.
There. And I mean, most of the time you got to replace them, and it's cheap to replace them because they're straight out of China.
Yeah, and there's what do they call it? Something
Built-in obsolescence.
Obsolescence. Yeah.
Built-in obsolescence.
Obsolescence. That's the run. So like all our devices and stuff, they're designed to die in
So you've got to buy a new one.
That's right. All about making money, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, when I was younger, if you took something back because it was broken, they give you the third degree. What did you do? How did it break? Show me this. Look at that. They would go over it because they built things to last.
Yeah.
Whereas now you can go to Bunnings and say, "Oh, I got this drill and it's broken." Don't even have to have a receipt. You could buy it anywhere, take it back, and they'll give you another one because they get probably 20% spares to cover all of that. So if they order 100, they probably get 120, and they can just So
it means small business can't really compete.
Well, that happens. Like there's no small hardwares anymore.
Yeah. Speaking of conscription, did you hear that Albo raised the conscription age
to 60? Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, anyone under 60.
Yep, 18 to 60. Which is, I guess, better than 12-year-olds. I think it was 12 to 26 before.
Yeah.
Now it's 18 to 60.
That was only in the last few weeks he did that.
That's right.
And they do all these things, once again, under the cover of darkness.
Yeah, not many people are talking about that one.
No. So, I mean, I imagine they didn't, if they had told the people and said, "We're going to raise the age, what do you think?" It wouldn't be 60.
So
no,
why did we have that yes vote, which was like from the outset, it looked like it was going to fail? Why did we spend all that money on that and we didn't vote for something that would affect so many lives like this?
The referendum.
Yeah. Why didn't we have a referendum for the age?
Yeah, well,
I feel like that affects more people.
Yeah.
It would. And imagine, like, I'm 61. I still feel young and good, but I can't imagine running around with 30-year-olds or 20-year-olds in a war.
Yeah.
You wouldn't, I suppose if you're organising them. But I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, it's for a very long time. You could be in the reserves till 60 was kind of the age, but you had to, I guess, make sure you're fit enough to do it.
But it just makes you wonder why they did it at all. Why now have they decided to do that?
Yeah.
What are they thinking?
Well, there's been recent talk of putting boots on the ground in Ukraine.
Yeah.
So it could be that
they've run out of
escalation.
They've run out of 60-year-olds.
Oh yeah, they've been kidnapping people off the streets to go and fight. They have no choice.
No,
it's a difficult situation to be in.
It's a good way to lose a war.
It is.
Force people to fight.
Yeah.
That's right. You don't want to be there.
You got it. Yeah.
I mean, that's why we lost Vietnam. One of the reasons.
Well, I don't know. The more you look at what's going on, the more you think half these things are just orchestrated for a reason. They persist with them until they think, "Oh, we've got what we wanted out of this, whatever it was," even though the average person mightn't see it. They probably had a result in their mind. They've got to that point. I don't know. There's like so many things you look at it and think, why did they do that? Because they got no result, but they walk away and think, I don't know.
Yeah, so I really like to talk about culture and how I believe politics is downstream from culture. Australian culture has changed dramatically over the last few years. Where do you see like Australia heading in terms of culture and why?
Yeah, I don't know. We've got so many. The immigration now is out of control, and you've only got to look around this area, like Central Coast, Wyong. The amount of people coming here that aren't Australian, like weren't born here, that are recent immigrants. It's got to change.
They don't have the values of Australian people.
They've got to change. So it's got to change things. Like even now, in a couple of weeks, I've got to.
I think they call it displacement theory.
Yeah.
So when you bring in a bunch of people who have different different ideologies, different values. They'll end up finding themselves. They'll find their own group. And they'll kind of group together, and they'll make pockets of different communities altogether, and they have their own kind of values and
that's right.
Traditions, and then it kind of goes right up against, I guess, Australian tradition.
Yeah.
And you're seeing things. I mean, just for example, the bacon doesn't get sold in certain places in Australia because I guess they will say that people aren't buying it, but there's a reason why they're not buying it. There's a whole different culture there, and
that's right. Yeah.
They're importing, I guess, different values into Australia,
and there's no problem with having different people, but they need to.
I think
they need to respect Australian values and come here to be Australian, and not come here to be wherever they came from. Bring everything here. They need to come here and say, "I've come here for a better life. I want to be an Australian."
That's right. I think assimilation has become a very triggering word. A word that's supposed to be bad, but I actually think it's supposed to be a good thing.
It is.
You kind of you want to come to Australia, like you come to Australia because you want the life Australia has or has to offer. But if you bring everything
with you, you're going to bring the rubbish with you.
That's right. So we need to people need to. I'm happy for and when you talk about assimilation and culture and whatnot, a lot of people go straight towards the food. Like, oh, I really love the different foods, or the different foods. We'll lose out on that. We won't. They'll still have their, I guess, cultural heritages and stuff, and their skills that they bring. But if they don't want to, I guess, learn the language, they don't want to kind of get alongside the values that Australia has kind of put forward for many years, and how we can actually move forward together.
You only there's two key things where what you're saying is happening. Australia Day continually gets attacked, and Anzac Day. Anzac Day and Australia Day are the 2 days that should be universal, set in stone. If you come here, you have to respect Australia Day and Anzac Day. That's it. If we went to some other country, they've got their commemorative days for whatever they are. We would have to observe them. But they come here and they don't want to celebrate Anzac Day for whatever reason. Whereas majority of people in my age have got an uncle, dad, or someone that was in the war, the Second World War, or my uncle was killed in the war, Second World War, at 21, just turned 21, shot. And his sacrifice almost means nothing now when you look at this country.
Yeah.
So, we've got to honour them, and we've got to stand up and start saying, well, enough's enough. It's time to put Australia first, make sure everyone that comes here
does the same thing. Because I
saw Paul Hogan a few years ago. I mentioned this a bit, but it's such a good line. And then it was a stand-up tour where he just talked about his life and what had happened through it. And when he was playing, doing the Paul Hogan show, and he had all of his ethnic characters that he used to go on with, someone asked him, what makes a good Australian? And he thought about it, and he said, just wanting to be one.
Yeah.
And I thought, how true is that? Like, you got so many people now that come to this country that don't want to be Aussies. If you can't, and you talk to people from anywhere that come here and want to be Aussies, they're good Aussies. But the ones that come here that don't want to be Aussies will never be any good.
I think the good example of that is the Italians back in the 60s, 70s and 80s. They seem to, they didn't come here with English as their first language, but they picked that up.
They worked. But even now...
They said that they would tell their children, like, we're no longer Italian, we're Australian.
Yeah.
Or
but they'd still marry other Italians.
Same with the Greeks. The Greeks came here a lot. They're
the same. But they became Aussies and wanted to be Aussies, and it's so true.
Yeah.
That if you want to be an Aussie, a good Aussie, you will be.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to be, you never will be.
I mean, even Australia had such a cool reputation back in the day, and now people from overseas look at us like looking at the Australia as an island, going, that is one of the most dangerous places on earth, and seeing how we had this persona of all being like Crocodile Dundee or Crocodile Hunter and just wrestling crocodiles, or dealing with the amount of small venomous pests that we have around,
Yeah.
or boxing kangaroos, and then you go on a show like Alone, and it's not that. We struggle to stay in the wilderness for 6 months, and
Yeah, that's right. And you look at now, I know people, not personally, but I've spoken to people who have come here from other countries 20, 30 years ago, are now going back
Yeah, right.
because they think, I've had enough of this joint. It's not what it was. So they're going back where they came from, and they left there because it was no good. So what's that say? We've fallen a long way that we have to correct, and that's One Nation has primarily got candidates across the country that are just average Aussies that have still got a job. Everything that we do, we have to fund ourselves or get volunteers to help. We get no funding from anyone other than ourselves and volunteers.
How do people get involved in volunteering with One Nation?
Or if you go to the One Nation's main website, there'll be a link there to candidates, and you can find the candidate in your area and go down that way.
Yeah.
Pretty much, it's probably the easiest way because it's a central point. Everyone go there and find their candidate from there. But yeah, it's very hard because you only got to look around our way now. The Liberal guy, he's got a pile of money behind him, and it's not his. I imagine it's like they got signs everywhere. I know what they cost because I put 6 up. But he's got 40, 50 of them, and they all got frames and lights and cameras. My sign's just sitting on a post somewhere. So I know
6 signs, mate. Breaking the bank there.
Yeah, that's it. But it does when it comes out of your own pocket.
That's right. And I think that comes back to that whole average Australian kind of putting his foot up, putting his hand up,
Yeah.
going, I want to change something for the better. John, do you have any more questions there?
Where in One Nation have you put family policy forward? Like, what policies would you say are here to help families? Because I've just recently had a kid, and I want my wife to be able to look after the kid, not some random stranger.
Well, One Nation has just introduced a policy where income splitting. I'm not a detail guy, like I'm a gut feeling guy, but the policy is based where if one of the family goes to work and the other one looks after the kid, you can share your income 50-50 and pay tax accordingly. So
you're paying less in tax.
Yeah, so if you earn $150,000 and your wife stays home,
75
that's
each.
75 each. So that's a significant tax saving. And that once again, the alcohol tax, they introduced a policy to reduce the tax on alcohol, and then Labor did the same thing a few weeks later and thought, oh, that's a good idea, we'll jump on that. And unfortunately, that happens a lot to One Nation. They'll introduce different ideas and policies, and from there, because it gets no attention because Channel 9 and 7 only play Labor and Liberal, no one knows about these policies or ideas. And then when Labor or Liberal steal it like they do, they claim it as their own, and no one would not be any the wiser because you've never seen anything unless you watch Sky News or something, so it's a bit of a sad situation where they steal a lot of policies, and that's why the country needs One Nation more than anything, because as long as we're around, the ideas will be there. The fact that they steal them isn't good, but at least they're being used.
At least they're being used.
Yeah, so at least it's something. So One Nation is sort of vital to the country to keep it, at least in some sort of fashion, going in the right direction.
And in One Nation, do you guys do conscience voting in Parliament, or is it for the party?
Personally, it's because I've never got that far. I don't know, but I know I've spoken to a couple of people that have been in there, and Pauline has allowed them to vote how they see fit.
So representing
their electorate. And I mean, to me, if you've got certain values that you've spoken about as you've been elected, you should stand by them because that's why you got voted in.
Yeah, 100%.
If you say one thing and then turn around, because the last election I went to what do you call it, a candidates meeting with the church group, and there was someone asked a question about full-term abortion, and the Labor candidate at the time, who's still in, all night after saying what a good Christian guy he was, supported full-term abortion legislation.
Yeah, right.
Just because he had no choice. It's, so they don't stand.
I'd love to have them on and talk about Christianity with them.
Yeah. So, and I mean, I just, I didn't agree with it, and I still don't agree with it. I mean, realistic, One Nation's policy is child life starts at conception.
Yeah.
And there's, in today's world, unfortunately, there's a grey area between that, but it's definitely not full term. It should be sort of at conception, but I don't know why two would agree.
I think the issue is black and white. People make it grey.
That's right. And the other thing now, got so many people struggling to have kids, for whatever reason, and I've got my opinions on that. But
there's a lot of theories out there for that.
Yeah, it's something to do. It's similar to what happened a few years ago. Same sort of thing. The reduced fertility of people should be encouraged to have the child and adopt it out, like was the case in the 60s. So all these people that are struggling with kids, have kids, could give it a home, and then everyone wins.
Or because incentivize a family unit staying together rather than going, if you don't have a man in your house, you get all these.
Oh, yeah, that's another thing they do. They encourage separation through financial incentives. Yeah, we don't actually encourage the family unit, do we, in this country?
And I believe you need the mother and the father. Like, you need both.
There's a
balance.
A meme I've seen somewhere recently a number of times, and it says the fatherless experiment isn't working out too well, is it?
Yeah.
And it's so true. Yeah. All the kids that have got no fathers, that were encouraged by the single mother's pension and all these financial incentives, and people years ago were committed to something. If you got married, you made a commitment, and you have ups and downs and good and bad times, but you stick with it, and at the end of the day, you'll come through it and have generally everything will sort itself out. But now that as soon as something gets tough, I'm out.
Yeah, I think you need to be able to go into a disagreement knowing that you're going to both be there at the end of it.
Yeah.
You can't bring up anything if you know that they're just going to
walk away.
Yeah, that's a deep rabbit hole to jump down, I think.
Yeah, but and that's so true now. People just won't cop it. They'll just, I'm out. As soon as something gets tough, they just go.
Yeah.
Whereas years ago, people never did that.
Well, it's much easier to do with no fault divorce as well coming in. So you don't have to be at fault of anything. It's just, I don't.
There's no guidelines for divorce.
That's right. It's just,
and that's the other thing that whole thing causes is people don't get married because they think it's too hard.
Well, 100% of divorce is because of marriage, right?
Yeah.
But people, I think, now are gun shy because they think, well, at the first drop of a hat, I'm going to lose half everything I've got.
Yeah.
So you think, well, should I really do this? And I think instead of encouraging a strong family unit, they've gone the other way. They've discouraged it and made a family unit almost, well, I suppose years ago, you got married, had kids, and that was the way life is now. Now people get married and don't have kids now because they choose to have a dog instead.
Yeah, much easier to look after.
Yeah, so
I think
call them fur babies.
I think the meme you're thinking about is 100%, 50% of marriages end in divorce, but the other 50 end in death.
No, that wasn't the one I was thinking of. I was thinking of 100% of divorce is because of marriage.
Okay.
Because you have to be married to get divorced.
So it's
I think when it comes to the abortion debate, we seem to jump on the either the aisles of this is it or this is what it. So it's either a baby at conception or it's not. I think to begin with, it will be kind of as you're talking about adoption before. We need to bring back supports to make that stuff easier because, as you said, there's more people out there who are struggling to have kids. If there was more support in family, especially young people who make a mistake, if they can actually go, there's another option instead of just
terminate
it, not just like sending them into the system, because that's what happens now. It's just into the system. You don't know where this kid's gonna end up, because they'll end up bouncing around from homes to home. They'll never actually get a properly adopted. It's really hard in Australia.
Adoption, now is hard, whereas years ago it was not
normal,
that big a deal.
Yeah,
and it should be that way again, because
I agree.
That way it gives the unborn child a secure chance of going somewhere loving.
Yeah.
And the mother that really may have got it pregnant by mistake, the option to say, well, I'll get out of this. I'll whatever, I'll pass the baby on without, so, because I imagine a lot of women that abort kids struggle with that later on in life.
They do, yeah. There's a lot of studies around that. Yeah.
So, I mean, might make sense when they're 18, but when they're 36 and they haven't got any kids, and they think, why did I do that? And
well, people are getting married a lot older as well, so it's harder to have babies, because we keep getting sold a lie that you need to go to uni, go get a job, and all this stuff, and we're not actually in a place where we can. And I think our society's kind of moved us that way, in terms of like needing to have dual incomes to kind of survive at the moment. It's not even just to survive, to be comfortable. I mean, because it's easy it's easy to, not easy. It is hard to run on one income, but it's not impossible. It means sacrifices, and that's what
50 years ago it was.
That's right. It's very different now. Yeah.
And you ever think of this before the 5 or so years before COVID, interest rates were zero.
Yeah.
Why? They were zero. Let everyone get into debt to their eyeballs.
Yeah.
And then
housing market went through the roof.
Yeah, but then all of a sudden they got control. Once everyone's got more debt than they can service, you do this or you can't have a job. Do that. So I mean, there's a lot of things when you retrospectively look back at rules and laws that have changed, and things that have happened. You can see there was a reason that happened 20 years ago, because they were aiming for a result here. So many things when you just retrospectively look at, they changed that law when? Back then. And then, they can enact that now. And no one knew they changed the law, or it was an innocuous thing back then, because you never thought we'd get to this situation we're in now.
Yeah. I want to get to, just for me and John, kind of stepping away from our opinions here, I really want to get to asking the question that's, hold on. That is, I guess, the premise of the show is what is your hope for the future, and what could you offer Australians in terms of hope? So if you are able to win any votes or anything like that, you are able to make a difference.
Yeah, or
what kind of things? Because hope is powerful. It allows people to drive forward to the future. It gives people hope for the future.
What I look at it like, we need to give everyone a purpose again. I think too many people now lead a life with no purpose. Whereas years ago, everyone had a purpose. You're going to do this, you're going to do that. So every day you had a challenge, you had something to do. Whereas now, too many people don't have a purpose. They wake up in the morning, they have a coffee, go sit down, watch TV, play the computer. They don't have any real purpose, and the country's gone that way. Country doesn't seem to have a purpose now. We don't make anything. Whereas years ago, everyone would be up making TVs, making this, making cars, whatever it was. The country was a self-sufficient country, and we all had a purpose to make our little piece. So we all had what we needed.
Yeah, built on small business.
Yeah, and now they're destroying small business. They want everything to be a globalist corporation, like they're talking now. Farms are all getting bought out by corporates, and then we've got to eat whatever they feed us. And I don't agree with that either, because unfortunately everything they do is with pesticides and whatever. It's very hard to get organic food.
Yeah, or even just food that's I mean, even just getting the pesticides that have been banned over in Europe are still being used here.
Yeah. And I buy some meat from a couple of organic farms, like full regenerative, no chemicals, nothing. And the meat, the taste is night and day different.
Yeah.
You don't realise over time how much the taste of things goes until you all of a sudden you go and buy something that's how it used to be. You think, geez, this is so good. And it just happens over time. Like, you should never buy your food from Coles or Woolies.
Yeah.
If you really care about what you're eating. But once again, everyone's time porks. They're working 2 jobs. They're working this. So I'll just call into Coles on the way home and get everything. Whereas before, you go to the butcher, then you go to the baker and the candlestick maker.
Yeah.
Get everything you needed from everywhere, and it'd be all.
And you would all know each other. It'd be this communal thing as well.
Yeah.
It wasn't just this person you don't know.
Yeah, that's right. Everyone had their place in society. They had a purpose. So you've got to get back to me, that's it. We've got to get a society with purpose again.
Yeah.
We've all got a part to play. Whereas now too many people have got no part.
Yeah, I think community is a big one for that. I'm not ashamed to say I'm a Christian. I think even if you don't believe in God or something like that, I think getting around like even a church or a community is so important for us and bringing us together to actually talk to each other. I got people that of the same church, of the same faith. We have radically different ideas and on whatnot, but we're actually able to talk about those ideas and kind of hash them out, and even though we may not agree in the end, we actually still move forward together as friends.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that we lost, especially with the advent of the internet, where you can find the community that agrees with you.
Yeah.
I think that's
they can do that, but you'll never meet them.
Yeah, unfortunate, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's the other thing, the face-to-face world is disappearing.
Yeah.
They want you to stay at home, get Uber Eats, work from home, basically never leave your house.
Yeah, well, these 15-minute cities, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not allowed to leave your city.
And the Central Coast is on the target list for one of them.
Yeah, so
people need to really snap out of it, because they sell convenience, but the reality is, once the convenience wears off, you realise, I'm trapped.
No, you're trapped
like a rat. Because over in Sweden, somewhere over there, I think they've gone to cashless, and it was first off, they accepted it because it was convenient.
Easier, yeah.
But now they're starting to realise, hang on a sec, we're trapped here. And you're seeing headlines where they're now regretting the decision. So we're still in a position where, if once again people stand up and say, I'm not doing it, I don't want it, we can still stop it. We all got to get a purpose. We've all got to say, I don't want this, and start standing up. And
with the word purpose, could you change that with dependence and independence? Like, so not dependent on Coles and Woolworths, independent.
Independent, yeah, that's right.
And obviously your party is independent from being dependent on the big two.
Well, we will. Yeah, One Nation will hopefully guide either of them in the right direction if we can get enough senators elected.
Because I think that's a lot of what I've seen with the young guys coming through. They've got a lot of dependence on either their parents or especially their mothers. They haven't found their own 2 feet, and I think when they do get away from their parents, they look to the government, and they're just looking for more dependence.
Well, because when I was in my 20s, whatever, that was right around the time the dole started to kick in. And I never was on the dole, but I had a lot of mates at the time that I played footy with, and that thought, how good's this? We don't have to work anymore.
Yeah.
And you just pretend you went and applied for a job or whatever, and they would get the dole, and 4 of them could share a house.
Yeah.
And they'd live better than I did. Because they were sharing a house or whatever. And that was the start of the government making people dependent
on the government.
And once you're dependent on the government, you'll vote for the bloke that's going to give you the most for doing nothing, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
It's sort of been a slow trap.
It is, isn't it?
Ridiculous.
Whereas, small business gets nothing, except taxed out of existence,
Yeah.
penalised or given more hurdles they have to jump,
Yeah.
you know, or more insurance you've got to
Red
take,
tape.
or red tape and green tape. You know, you can't do anything without getting approval from this bloke and that bloke. Even farmers now, you have to get. Mate of mine was saying he saw on Sky Channel, I think, something the other week, where farmers need to get someone to come out and inspect the weeds they want to pull out. Because the farmer's no longer entitled to make decisions on what weeds to pull out. He has to get someone else to come out, pay him.
It's ludicrous enough that we're paying farmers not to farm, but now we're regulating down to the individual weed.
That's right,
and that's insane.
That seems like Stalin era stuff.
Yeah,
they're telling you how
long until we get to the gulags, hey?
Yeah, they would legislate how far each crop would have to be
apart
from each other.
And it's like
whereas
pencil pushers are doing all the policies.
Are they farmers?
The farmers aren't.
Yeah, well, I was on a job once talking about pencil pushers.
Yeah,
we had we were putting solar panels on the roof of a train station. It was about 4 stories high. And had a perimeter fence with an external stair up to it, and had to finish the perimeter of the roof. So they said, "Oh, the internal stairs are finished. We'll pull down the external stairs." They pulled down the external stairs and put just some red and white warning tape across the one section that was missing. And we're all working away, and all of a sudden we were told to get off the roof. It's unsafe, and we couldn't work out why. And we've come down, and there was someone straight out of uni that said, "There's a piece of handrail missing." I said, "Yeah, but it's got red and white tape." "No, but the handrail's not complete. You've got to get off the roof." So there was 20 or 30 of us down there watching this, and they couldn't work out how to fix it because you couldn't get on the roof because it was unsafe. So they made the guys build a scaffold stair back up, put a bit of handrail in and pull it down again. 4 hours, 20 of us doing nothing instead of common sense, just because someone read a book and said, "Well, that's unsafe," instead of using a bit of common sense and saying, "Well, hang on. Let's just go up through the stairs, walk over there, put a harness on, put that in."
Yeah.
And that's the problem. We've got people that are educated with
no experience.
People, so many places now, they get all these degrees but can't do a day's work because they know nothing. They know everything on paper but physically can't do a day's work worth paying for.
Yeah.
Whereas you're better off employing someone that can do the job that hasn't got a bit of paper to bless himself, because you'll get a day's work out of him and it'll be right.
You're looking for workers?
Who you got in mind, John? You looking for a job?
I'm fine.
It's this conversation's been really awesome. I really want to get to some of our comments here. So before I get to the comments, though, I would like to remind people to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share the show with your friends, and if you have any questions for Martin, send them up. Where our first one comes from an Amelia. What would what would your advice, Martin, be for people wanting to make their vote count this election?
Well, you've got to know who to vote for, and you have to. The preferences are critical. There's a video Topher Field did. If anyone just Google it, Topher Field.
Topher Field.
Topher Field, Topher Field.
Yep.
It's a 9-minute video. He's done a shorter one, and it fully explains the preferential voting system. And as he said, if used properly, you actually get the best chance of getting minor parties and the person you want elected. It's only that the media and that tell you it's a 2-party preferred. Everyone assumes it's a waste of time. So pretty much we have to educate ourselves and everyone around us how to vote properly. And that video does it well. And it also dispels some myths about, the fraud and stuff like that. It's a very good 9-minute video. So make sure you look at it. But the main thing is to vote properly and in order, and put the major parties somewhere down the bottom where they belong.
And I think that was a big push in the last election.
Yeah,
to put the major parties last.
But unfortunately, a lot of people don't do that. They might vote for One Nation 1 and then Liberal Party 2.
Yeah.
Or the Liberal Party 2 and One Nation 1. As soon as you don't give a minor party your first preference, it's wasted.
Yeah.
Because you're never going to, 1 and 2, Labor and Liberal, will probably get majority. But with the smaller parties,
Mm.
if you vote 1 for One Nation, 2 for Libertarians, 3 for Gerard Rennick's new party, I'm not sure the name, and 4 for some other local independent, if the local independent gets 100 votes, but he's the bottom of the list, his votes will then go to the next one up. And if he doesn't get in, he'll go to the next one. And then all of a sudden you could have, out of those 4, the one that got the most primary votes with enough votes to go past Labor or Liberal, one of them.
Yeah.
And once they go past them, then the Labor or Liberal votes have to get divvied up between that party and the other one of the majors that stand. And so all of a sudden, especially now that the major parties are only getting 30%, there's 40% of people voting differently. So there is a real chance if people learn how to vote properly and diligently do it, you can actually get people in and make a difference.
Yeah. I actually just pulled up the video, and I'll drop it into the description after this after we finish up here, so we can have it up there. I might even just chuck it into the chat for anyone who might be interested. But yeah, we'll chuck it into the description, and people can look.
It's well worth it. It's a really good video.
Yeah, cool. We're from an Alistair May. The Daily Mail reported that Dutton has a disapproval of 64% for young women and an approval rating of 21% for, while Labor has an approval, while Labor approval is 29%. How does One Nation plan on capturing young female voters?
That's a bit beyond me, at like my pay grade to a degree.
Yeah. We'll have to get Pauline on.
Pauline's doing. They're bringing out the policies like the family policy to try and encourage mums to stay at home and do their bit with the family. But young women, I think, for some reason, have been that, especially recently, school leavers have been poisoned through the school system with the Greens and the left ideology. And
the school system's been captured for a very long time.
Yeah, and so, but now those people are out to vote. So it's hard to reverse them until they've lived a bit of life and realise this dream they sold me is not a dream, it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
And when they probably get to their 30s, they'll realise, oh shit, that was a mistake. The way I voted, because they've had to live through what was supposed to be a utopia that's not. And
yeah, you can have everything you want, and then get your family after, and then you're finding out that
that's not happening.
That's not happening because I guess age is a thing when it comes to family. A recent story I read was there was I think it was a law firm was actually offering young women who come and work for them, will freeze your eggs. They'll pay for it.
Yeah.
So that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's a very intrusive, in my opinion, and such. If come work for us, we'll make sure you have babies later on in life, but we'll have you in your prime.
But it's not a viable option still.
No, because it
still has to take.
Yeah,
and they'll give you no guarantees. They're only doing
that's
that
right.
To get you there. So, but I've noticed too on a lot of social media stuff that there is now growing number of traditional sites and whatever where people are now starting to say go back to traditional values, and it's a growing trend that I think people are starting to get to the end of this madness and think, hang on, I used to like it when it was a traditional family and mum and dad and the 2 kids could go to the park. So I think the tide is turning, because 5 years ago you wouldn't have seen any of that, whereas now that traditional West, I think it's Trad West is one meme. They always
Trad wives,
Trad West, whatever. They're pumping out a lot of stuff, and you're also having a lot of young women telling doing posts, sort of saying, don't play the field and expect to get a good man in your mid-30s.
Yeah.
No, the good man that you had when you were 20 is long gone. So I think there's a lot.
And in high demand.
Yeah. Well, he's gone. And that's why also a lot of, I've sort of seen older guys in their late 20s, early 30s are getting young girls.
Yeah, a good one.
they don't want them with all the baggage.
Yeah, that's right. A good one to watch in terms of what gave. There's a few people that come to mind when it comes to like women and feminism and whatnot, and how they were kind of lied to. One I like is there's a good trigonometry video on sexual revolution is terrible for women with Louise Perry. Another one is a book called Occult Feminism, which was done by Rachel Wilson, and it talks about how um, women's suffrage was actually women were against it. Women were against actually wanting, and it's through hard research as well. Women were actually against the whole feminist movement in the beginning, and actually because they were afraid that if they did get the, I guess the powers, the things that men have, that they would then next thing would be they would be called up to war and whatnot. If they had the same rights that men had completely, responsibilities would come along with it.
Mm. But
And
men and women are different.
We
We've
are.
all got our jobs.
That's right.
Women are meant to raise children and nurture them, and go out, hunt and whatever in the old days, but that's a general concept. And I think more and more people are now starting to see value in that. We've sort of, and I think like my daughter's just resigned from her job this week. She's got 2 young kids and she just doesn't want to be away from them. So, the young kids, so she's going home.
Yeah, me and my wife are working really hard to be able to get her at home raising our kids. And I think what we don't do in our society is, I guess, we don't praise mothers. We don't see that as a valuable thing. We just see, oh, if you're at home raising the kids, you're not contributing to society. I think that's a big lie that women, that mothers have been sold. I mean, the best thing you can do for our society is to bring up the next generation. It's the most important job.
And bring up good people.
That's it.
That's more important, because I saw something when you're talking about the history of feminism, and I think to get women to work was to get access to the kids.
Yeah,
so
I think that's
you get
part of
women
it.
to work, so then all of a sudden they're going to childcare or daycare, and then the government's got access to your kids to pump their heads.
Also drives down the labour market. The price of labour goes down because you've got twice as much competition.
But someone told me
twice as many people to tax.
Yeah, I saw certain things that the women's movement was funded by the Rockefellers.
Yeah.
And I mean, the more you look at things, you think, well, why would they do that? And it's exactly so they get control of the kids. Because my old dad had a saying: "You give me a boy, and I'll give you the man."
Yeah.
So once they get hold of the kids, they're going to determine what sort of person they are.
Yeah.
The parents sort of lose control once the kids go to daycare too early or whatever. But in today's world, if you've got a mortgage, you nearly got to have both parents working.
That's it. It's very hard.
Especially with $1 million house in the back of Wyong.
Yeah. Well, yeah, me and my wife, we're looking at the cheapest place on the coast, and it's still hard for us to get in. And I don't know where else really we can go, because if you go inland, it goes up before it goes down. You have to be 2 hours out before you actually get something that's...
But at Gunnedah, I go out there a bit.
Tamworth, it's all skyrocketing.
Like, I mean, probably was only 10 years ago you could buy something Tamworth Gunnedah for $100,000.
Yeah.
Now they're $600-700 for a run of the mill house.
It's crazy. My landlords like to travel Australia a bit, and every time they go, they like to have a look at the local real estate, and they're just so surprised. They send me pictures of all the time of things that are being offered. It's like 500 to 700,000 for 400 square meters, even out there, and you're like, what? How can young people have a fair go?
Yeah. Well, we do a bit of regional work, and over the years, it was probably in 2007, 2008, we were at Gunnedah doing a job, and a house there was $40,000 then.
Yeah.
$40,000 for a house and land. And then it was only 5-6 years ago, before COVID, we were out at Warren. You could have bought the pub for $100,000.
Yeah.
A 2-story brick pub.
Yeah.
So many rooms for $100,000. I don't know what they're worth now, but it wouldn't be 100.
No, it wouldn't.
So
should look that up.
Everything's just got out of control.
Yeah.
And once again, to make sure we go to work. We're slaves to the bank now, aren't we?
Yeah. Another question we've got from a Cherry Blossoms. Hey, Martin, you seem like a regular bloke who is willing to stand up to improve things. If you had the ability to improve one thing for Australians, what would it be?
One thing.
Yeah, one thing.
Top of the list.
What do you let give you a second to think about it, John? If you could do one thing for regular Australians right now, what would you do? Just to throw you under the bus.
Yeah, I'd release land, and I know that like I got a mortgage now, so releasing land and making it affordable for people would actually devalue my house. But
Yeah.
I reckon that's a way to do it, rather than holding up land and then releasing it over time, and just retaining value in the land. Like, that's not the government's land, I don't think, to control.
No, yeah,
They're just custodians for
yeah,
us.
yeah. I agree. For me, I don't know that the country's in such turmoil. I'm trying to think of the one thing, but probably along the same lines, I think immigration has to be curbed to get over the housing market, which would do the same sort of thing, bring a downward price on there. But I don't know if that's the primary thing. I don't know.
My thing would probably be to completely stop printing of money. No more printing of money. You stop the printing of money, inflation stops.
I just know what it is.
There you go.
Get out of all of these globalist organisations. Remove ourselves from UN, WEF, WHO, and bring back our own autonomy back, where we control everything for ourselves and give every person their own individual rights back that have been lost. That to me took me a few minutes to think of it, but to me that's the most important thing. We've all lost our own rights where they want to tell us what we can and can't do. Like I said, years ago, people went to war for freedom.
Yeah.
And now you go to Anzac Day and you hear people say we've got to honour the Anzacs one day a year, but then the rest of the year they'll do what they're told, like sheep. I think that's not what the Anzacs fought for. They fought for freedom. And people need to realise what we've got now isn't freedom.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'd get out of all the UN, all the globalist organisations, and give everyone their personal freedom back and rights to make their own decisions.
Yeah. Any more questions out there for anyone, for Martin or for myself or John? Feel free to send them through. If it comes there, if we get some comments after the fact, after the video's gone into out there into the cloud, we'll endeavour to try get some answers from Martin through correspondence. But if we don't get anything in the next 5 minutes, we'll start wrapping up.
I got another one written down here. Just with our local government, it's bankrupted itself through poor management. Do you see that there should be steps in place, both local, state, and federal, to somehow manage how much they can spend? And obviously, we've got a huge deficit in the national debt. States have individual debts.
Well, that pretty much comes back to something you said before about people being in the right portfolio.
Yeah.
I got a question on that. What is One Nation kind of really kind of hits federally? What kind of actions or kind of support does One Nation kind of give to people who want to kind of run locally in their communities? Is there anything there? Is they kind of really focus in on that kind of Senate, national, federal race?
The unfortunate truth is Labor and Liberal have geared the system so the funding from the elections, majority of it goes to them.
Yep.
Yeah.
As we've seen through this transparency bill.
Yeah, the Labor Party gets union funding in the back door. Liberal Party get some business funding, I assume, but exactly where not like the union, it's not as clear cut where their funding comes from, but you can see by what they're spending locally here, they've got money to spend.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we don't have that. Well, we've only got a few senators on a shoestring budget. They've got to run an office, run the parliamentary business, and then try and organise a national campaign on a shoestring. So effectively, the candidates we have to foot the bill ourselves for our campaign. So it's cost you $5,000 just to put your hand up, and pay the nomination fee and whatever, and for the minimum amount of material you need, and then anything else you do on top of that, you think, oh, I should do this. You've got to foot the bill for that too. You get some people will help with small donations, but I'm yet to see anyone come up and give me $50,000 and say, go for your life. So, typically with the help I've had and what I've put in, we spend somewhere between 10 and 15,000.
Yeah.
So for the effort the money we put in and the effort we've got to do, it makes it hard, but
to do locally, but it's much easier to kind of run that big game for the federal.
But and the other thing that we need is people prepared to put their hand up and put a sign in their front yard. Like so many people you talk to now say, I agree with Pauline, but they won't say that in public to anyone else.
I call them closeted conservatives.
Yeah. So we need people to say, and if any of your listeners are happy to put signage up, get in touch and give us an address and we'll come and put signs up. But it's so hard to get anyone to put signage up. Oh, I don't want anyone to know. But I think those days are over. You have to let people know. There's more of us than they think, and we have to grow by standing up. And all of a sudden it'll be like the grass will just appear everywhere. Oh, shit, you. And that's what we have to do, is actually start standing up to be counted. And they'll count us and they'll realise there's more of us than they thought.
Yeah. Well, in saying that is where's the, if you do obviously take donations, where would be the best place for people to then donate to you if they wanted to support you, or if they wanted to get involved in the actual action of?
Once again, go back to that website. Go onto my candidate link.
Yep.
And drill down from there.
Awesome. We'll put that in the description for people. We've got another question. How many One Nation seats do we need to make a bigger difference in Canberra? I would say all of them, but yeah.
But exact number, it depends on how it falls. But the best result that you can probably hope for in this election is Liberal Party get in with a One Nation balance of power in the Senate.
Yeah.
And then One Nation can actually change the direction of things, because they'll have actually some
they'll need your vote.
They'll need
to
One
get
Nation to do things.
Like the hung parliament.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a bit like what happened to Gillard and the Greens.
Yeah.
That's Australia's gone downhill.
And then they realised that they weren't buddies anymore.
Yeah. But that's when Australia went downhill fast, because all of a sudden the Greens were just towing them around on a rope. Do this, do that. And then we need One Nation to be starting to turn it the other way with it. Pulling the Liberal government.
So do you see it as a pendulum system where it goes too far left, you need a swing to the right? And
yeah, because I mean, we're getting to that point, aren't we, that all this gender stuff, and people are just getting to the point where what was acceptable is now become lunacy.
Yeah, I think that's like a 95% issue, that one. It's just they're the loudest voices out there.
They got the control of the media.
Yeah, and the young female voters.
Yeah,
it's all come through the schools.
They vote emotionally. They don't, and emotions are not to be underestimated. Emotions are a very powerful thing, and maybe we don't use that enough in terms of the way we motivate people. But it's hard to do, and it's hard to do without being dishonest. Yeah. I think.
I don't want to coerce people.
No, you don't want to coerce
what I believe.
No, facts are facts.
Yeah.
Though.
That's
Sometimes
right.
Facts are facts, and emotions don't always line with facts.
Yeah, the old trope. Ben Shapiro says, "Facts don't care about your feelings."
Yeah.
But your feelings don't care. Their feelings don't care about your facts, and that's the fight. I think that's a big thing about one of the reasons why we do this show is to change culture, and I think that's the nail on the head they're hitting right there. Culture is such a big thing here for politics, and if we can actually change the culture to be going back to our traditional kind of values that we had in Australia, that we actually got along with each other, did the hard work, and go home at the end of the day to to our families to give back to them instead of just all being about me, or finding that everything that's all about the self and instead of the community and your family. We have another question from an Alistair May. Martin, do you think mandatory voting is beneficial for our system, or should we be more like the American model where people should register to vote so they generally care more and are more informed?
I do, because the last 4 elections I've stood at the voting booths and I watch people come in and you think, you're making a decision on my behalf.
Mm.
And it frightens me because they don't want to be there. They're only there because I have to be here. I don't get fined. And they go in and half of them won't vote properly anyway.
Yeah.
So I think, it should be, then people will vote intelligently. They'll know what they want to vote for. And anyone that doesn't want to vote doesn't really deserve a say in how the country's run.
I think more and more people are actually saying that they would love to see us move away from the Commonwealth and move to our own kind of representative republic ourselves. But will that ever happen? We don't know. I don't think it will. I think there's too much security in Australia being a part of the Commonwealth, especially with how weak we are militarily. And also, means we also have someone else that we can, if anything ever went to where the poo hit the fan, then we could call out for help. One, it's not really a question, but I think it's more of a statement. But Amelia said, "Where did respect go?" And people don't respect each other anymore.
Oh, they don't, do they?
No. I think there's a bunch of reasons why.
That goes back to traditional values.
Traditional values. I think one of the big things, especially for the respect between men and women, is that a lot of young men, and especially it's starting to emerge now, but I think pornography has been a destroyer of our society and the relationship between men and women.
I think popular music and movies sort of steer that too with the lyrics in some songs. I don't think there's any respect.
There's 100% no respect in some of those popular songs.
And
I mean,
if you go back to
just look at WAP
music of the 40s and 50s, and it was all had good lyrics. It was, everything about the music back, probably even into the 60s. All the music had lyrics.
Just makes me think of that video where they look at the Christmas song.
Yeah, so there's a Christmas song that got banned that was from the 40s after.
Oh, yes.
You've seen this one?
From the Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
The movie
that got
Christmas Carol.
Banned, but then the number one song at the time was in America was Wet Ass Pussy.
That's right, but it wasn't banned.
Yeah. It's just very weird.
I know, but that's where we're going. And you look at the clothing people used to leave the house with. If you left the house in anything but,
that's respect for yourself, isn't it?
Yeah. Whereas now people will walk out in anything, and when you go, years ago you would dress
conservatively
and whatever to go out if you're going out. Whereas the values of everything have changed, and I wouldn't really say for the better.
There's not much even at church anymore. There's no such thing as your Sunday best anymore.
Yeah, it used to be your Sunday best. You'd wear nearly worn out clothes all week when you went out on a Sunday to church, wherever you had your best clothes on.
Yeah, and I'm sometimes guilty of that too.
This is a good segue. Are you a Christian, or do you have a faith, a background?
My mum was a Methodist, and her father was a minister.
Yeah.
So my mum was in the Methodist church up until till she met Dad, and she worked in New Guinea, and Dad was not religious. He just had the belief that if you're a good person, you're a good person and live a good life. And I'm a result of that. So I sort of live somewhere in between. Whereas I think, especially the last few years, I've become a lot more, I suppose, spiritual in thinking there's something going on that you have to sort of stand up for things.
So you believe there could be a God, but you don't know which.
Yeah, but I don't know whether it's here, there, or wherever. But I think there's something going on, and like there's so many things going on that if people are awake, that you look and I've met so many people in the last 5 years while doing this that I would never have met. And there's just, it's hard to say. So I believe in the Christian values make a great society.
Yeah.
I mean,
with the values that Australia was founded on, really.
Makes a good country, good place to live. And like I said, so a few years ago, it was probably 10 years ago, I fell from somewhere where I was doing something. I probably should have fallen 10 feet or more. And I fell and I landed somewhere a foot below where I was. I'm like, how did I get here?
Yeah, wow.
And from that point on, I thought, I got something to do.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm sort of one of the reasons I put my hand up, because I thought, well, maybe that's why I didn't fall.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I was going to segue into if you read the Exodus story, one of the great prophets of the Bible is Moses, and he was a reluctant leader. And I think that's what makes a really good leader. People that want power are usually the worst ones with it.
Yep.
Yeah.
They want it for their own ends.
Look at Stalin, Hitler, Mao. People that want the power tend to be the worst people with the power. Power.
People say that Trump was the person who wanted power, but I don't think that's at all. He never had an interest in running until Obama challenged him and said, "You'll never be president."
Yeah.
And he went, "Well, watch me." And then 2016 rolled around.
And if you actually look back at Trump's interviews over his life, what he's saying now, you can find the same thing. He said the same thing in the 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
He's exactly saying now what he said back then. So he hasn't changed his views.
Yeah.
America was being rorted back then, it's still being rorted now. And the interviews you watch from back then are so almost carbon copies of now. So he hasn't changed. He's stuck true to his values.
Yeah.
And that's what you want in a politician. You want
conviction
in your politicians.
Yeah.
I like Tony Abbott. That's probably the last politician I like. And I think he was the first politician I actually saw out and about. He was at a Manly game. But he, even after he got booted for not being popular enough, he was still making videos when there was a vote to be had. He goes, "This is what I believe. I'm a Christian. So if you have that faith, this is what I believe you should be voting on." So it's always about conviction with him.
Yeah.
And the reason he was unpopular is because what he ran on, he actually did what he said.
Yeah.
So
he was okay, but there was a couple of things same thing. He either got outvoted or whatever, and some of the things I can't remember, like the Paris Agreement and stuff like that. I think that's why they got rid of him.
Yeah, right.
He said he wasn't going to sign it, and then they got rid of him, put Turnbull in.
Yeah,
and Turnbull signed.
Turnbull's he's a bit of a puppet.
Yeah, but he had vested interest in the green energy sector.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
everything you look at, though, you just got to look at where the money goes, and you'll realise why they've made that decision.
Yeah.
All the money leads back to the same people.
Yeah. Well, man, it's been a pleasure having you here. It's been awesome hearing your story and how you got into politics, just being a regular old Joe and decided to put your hand up. I love a person who's been thrust into the position instead of being wanting to be there. So I really do wish you all the best with your fight and the bringing hope to Australians. And we hope we can we'll put up your details into the description, and we'll see how you go. And good luck with it all. And we'll finish up. Is there anything you want to say in closing?
No, other than thank you for the opportunity, and hopefully it makes a few people realise that One Nation is not what the media portrays, and we are just average people that want the best for Australia, and that's all Australians, not segments of Australia, all Australians. So, that's something that's been unfortunately hammered on for years and very hard to shake.
Yeah.
But that's not the reality. The reality is we're just average Australians that want a better Australia for every Australian.
Yeah, awesome.
So, thank you.
You're welcome. John, is there anything you want to say in closing?
Yeah, I hope we get you back, and hopefully you'll be elected by then.
Yeah, it would be awesome.
But I won't be in a suit and a tie,
Yeah,
I'll
okay.
tell you that.
Oh, I love it that you came in your good old high vis. It's good. We need more people who are in the we need more tradies out there
representing
us.
Yeah.
Because they're the feet, they're the hands and
Yeah.
feet on the ground doing all the work.
We know the pain
That's
Yeah.
it.
that what we've got now inflicts on us.
Mm.
Yeah.
All right. So if you could please, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Thank you for your comments. If you want to send some more in, you can more than welcome. We'll get some correspondence going. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share the show with your friends. Love it if you could share share this episode particularly with your Facebook groups, especially those who are on the coast and agree with Martin and his values and want to see his message go out, and see if you can help bring people some hope with the message that he aspires to bring to Australians. So, yep, that's it for us. We'll see you. Yeah. Oh, Martin's got one more thing to say.
One last thing with that is persistence. You've got to be persistent. Like this is we've been
Squeaky hinge gets the oil.
Yeah, but if you just appear at an election and then disappear, come back the next election, appear again and disappear, and this goes for right across the board for everything. If you, especially to do what we're doing to try and turn the country around,
yeah,
you can't just appear at elections and disappear. You've got to get involved and stay involved and grow. We started off with 4 of us when I joined in Gosford and Central Coast. There was only 4 of us. Now we have regular monthly meetings ever since the first election I ran in. We just continued to have monthly meetings, and we went from 4 to 5 to 6, and now we get between 20 and 40 at each meeting. We have and that's doesn't matter what you do. You got to be persistent and keep going if you want to get a result.
Yeah,
you can't just appear, I didn't win, and disappear, and then expect next time to be any different.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
That's yeah.
Cool. And next week we have an awesome video with a guy called Tim. He's going to come on and talk to us about More Pay in May, which is about breaking gambling addiction. So we'll see you there next week. Have a good one, everyone. Have a good night, and we'll see you next time.
See you next week.
Thank you.